So here we're today at Pine Hills Church. This is the church that I'm a part of, and I play on the worship team, also do stuff with sound, and so I kind of wanted to walk through some of the things that we're doing, which is it's kind of fun. We're doing some interesting things with as far as gear and how we're utilizing the equipment and using technology in part of a worship experience. So we've got our acoustic drums. I'm doing some drum triggering, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The other big thing that's kind of different is that I've got two laptops going, and what we're doing there is a couple different things. One of the main things that I do is I use Ableton Live, and I've got that set up over here on this computer, and we use that for a click track on every song. So we use an in-ear system. We have the Roland M48 in-ears, which is part of the M480 whole system. So we have the mixer and the digital snake and all that stuff. And so we have our own dedicated mix that everyone has, so all the musicians have their own mixer. And so we use a click on everything. The reason we use a click is not because we want to be always perfect in time. I mean, yeah, it's nice to be in time. But really the main thing is the ability to go in and out of songs, to make transitions, to be consistent within those songs without, like for example, if we're in more of a intimate time and I don't have to count out a song loud as far as the tempo, I can just say, okay, when you hear 4 clicks, come in. And so those kinds of things really open up a lot of flexibility. The other thing it does is it allows us to tempo sync a lot of things, whether it be tracks, whether it be keyboard parts, arpeggiators, that kind of a thing, and also loops. So if we're going to use a loop, now when I'm talking a loop, I'm talking literally a loop, like a small little piece of audio that repeats over and over, typically a drum part or a percussion pattern, something like that that you're using as a loop, and then we play over the top of it with acoustic instruments. So with Ableton, what's really cool is that I have each song set up inside of there as a scene. And so their tempo laid out, and then I can have the click in the first channel of that scene, and then I can have any additional loops or anything like that over here on the second channel. And then I have the songs named, and so if I'm going to trigger a song, I would just trigger that song, and it would start the click, any loop, anything else that's going on. And so that's a great tool to utilize for that. It's not a very complicated thing to do. We're not doing anything fancy with the laptop. This is just a basic PC. I'm using just a mini plug out of the headphones into a DI, and then that DI is running into the house. So really, really simple with what we're doing. Over here on the other laptop, I have, I'm doing two things. One is I can trigger other stuff, so other loops, other sounds. Also, I'm using this to trigger drum sounds. So I have a DrumCat, which is a pad controller. I'm using that twofold. I'm using it to trigger the starts and stops in Ableton. Also, I can trigger sounds with it, so if I want to add a tambourine or something like that. Also, I'm using it as acoustic triggers. So I have a trigger on my kick drum and on my snare drum, which I'll talk about those in a minute. They're going into the trigger inputs on the DrumCat. And then that's going to this other computer via MIDI. And I'm triggering, right now I'm using Steven Slate drums, and I'm triggering kick and snare in addition to having them mic'd. So then we blend between the trigger and the mic sound. The nice thing about that is obviously you can get a big fat sound. The other thing is if I want a little different kick sound or a little different snare sound, I can trigger those and get a different sound without having to do anything with the drums. I just simply select another channel. Another sound, and it does that for me. So the DrumCat is a great tool to be able, and you can use any pad controller, this is just the one I happen to have, that allows you to trigger sounds as well as trigger MIDI events and trigger MIDI control. So I can trigger Ableton Live, I can trigger the clicks, I can trigger sounds if I want as well. The other thing that we're doing that's kind of unique is on my main laptop over here that I'm running Ableton, I'm running it with a wireless MIDI time code. So I have a driver on there that allows me to transmit over the wireless network MIDI time code. So this computer is getting tempo from this computer, which any of the other guys in the band can do the same thing. They can get tempo. Let's say the guitar player is using a laptop for his delays. He can get that tempo. The biggest reason we did it really is because of keyboard players. So if a keyboard player is playing an arpeggiator and we want that arpeggiator to be tempo synced, they can get it close, But with this, they just run off a MIDI time code that they just grab on their laptop, and now when he plays a arpeggiator, it's exactly in time with what's going on with our click, because it's following the click. So if I hit spacebar over here, this computer starts as well. And so it's starting and stopping, and it's matching tempo. So I have that control again with this. It's just wireless. It's just a wireless network. We're actually just using the wireless network in the building. We just logged into the wireless network. I'm running that driver on there, and then I can pick it up on the other laptop or any of the other laptops. Actually, you can do it on iDevices as well. It'll show up on an iPad and an iPhone, those kinds of things also. So that's kind of the basic setup with the computers and how we're utilizing that with Ableton Live and triggering and those kinds of things. Right now we don't do a whole lot with using full tracks or anything like that because we have full band, but we'll use it with additional loops and that kind of a thing. The triggering thing, this is a really cool snare head. This is a new thing from Aquarian that it's a drum head with a trigger built into it. So it's actually in between the plies. So it's a regular snare drum. So when I hit it, it's just a regular snare drum, yet it has a trigger material in it. The cool thing about it is it works off of pressure, not vibration. So I can hit all around the drum and it doesn't false trigger, which is really, really cool, especially for this application. I have one on the bass drum as well. So it triggers on the bass drum. And same deal, those are both going into the DrumCat, which is what's generating the MIDI data, which is then what's generating the sounds through the laptop. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's, you know, the key is we're using technology to help us accomplish, help us bring the church into a place of worship, help us to be with more excellence in what we do. It's not about using fancy gear and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I have the privilege of being part of Sweetwater. We get the opportunity to use some pretty cool stuff. And so I wanted you to see kind of how we're using that in a practical way. And it helps. It's a tool that allows us to do what we're doing, hopefully to help reach people for Christ, help to impact people in that way. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, and not be a distraction with the technology and with the extra stuff. But it gives us the ability to do things we wouldn't normally be able to do. So that's what we're doing here at Pine Hills, and thanks for the time today.